Looking out across this pure, beautiful water, I think about purity. And how sometimes for us as young people, really understanding how to grasp that in our lives personally today can be a little bit elusive. Sexual purity is, I think, something that all of us would ideally like to experience. But for some of us, that's not what really happens. Sexual addiction, even for Christian young people in the church, is so prevalent and something that's not discussed. But that silence needs to be broken. I wish that people would have been talking about it when I was younger. Maybe that would have saved me from a lot of really terrible experiences. But I realized that God has led me on a journey to teach me a lot of lessons that maybe can help other people. I don't want to just stop talking about it. I don't want to not talk about it. I think it needs to be discussed. One of the things that God had to really help me to understand was a difference in perspective. From my point of view right here, I look up at these mountains and they're so big. I could never imagine climbing to the top. And that's how my sin was. My sin for me was insurmountable. And I felt like I could never overcome it. My sexual addictions to pornography and to relationships, it was something that gave me a sense of definition in my life. Who would I be if I wasn't bisexual or a lesbian? Where would my pleasure come from if I didn't have that escape? And I didn't have anyone to talk to. And my sin was something I could never overcome. But sometimes I climb into an airplane and I fly into the sky, and from that perspective, the mountains look very different. I can see all the crevices and I can see where the water flows downstream, and it helps me to realize that that's what God wants to do for me. He wants to change my perspective. So I see my sin totally different, where it's not something that has to control me, but I can overcome it. God did that for me in my life, but it came through a lot of surrender and a change of my perspective. I had to come to see my sin for what it really was. Sin. Something that didn't help me but only harmed me. Maybe for you today you're struggling and you feel like this mountain is impassable and that there's no one to talk to. But there is a God in the heavens, and He wants to help you to see things from His perspective. You can talk to Him. And if you'll surrender your love life into His hands, and you'll give Him your sexuality, He can give you something so much more beautiful. He's done it for me, and He can do it for you.